right, we are back. We're going to give it another shot. This is attempt 135 to produce a good podcast. This is the Grunge Bible Podcast. My name is Ethan Shalloway. I am joined, as always, by Chris Salona. And yeah, Chris, I figured, we're just out here giving it another shot. You know what I mean? We're just seeing if something sticks on this episode. I think so.
Exactly. And if you've been listening in particular for the last couple of weeks, you know that we're big baseball people around here. And we've referenced the great Joe DiMaggio's streak of 56 games, that he hit safely in a row. And we've got a streak going of our, on our own over here of 135 weeks. But, with DiMaggio's streak, sometimes he goes 1 for 4 with the single and keeps the streak going. Other times he goes 4 for 4 with 3 home runs. So we have our podcast episodes where we're 4 for 4 with 3 homers. Then we have our other podcast episodes where we're 1 for 4 and we had a cheap little single up the middle. So we'll leave that to the people to decide whether episode 135 is a strong day at the dish or if we're just doing enough to get by, because all we can do is all that we do. Ethan, How are you today?
Chris, I'm doing pretty well. This is the first episode I'm doing back in Alabama. I took this week to drive down, and it was really nice. I'm a big fan of driving. Not all the time, but whenever I drive, I'm always usually I'm pretty happy I did because totally. I can stop and see people along the way that I would normally not see, and it would have to be a formal event to have it planned. Indeed. So I was able to, I drove in the northern PA, central to Penn State, and then I went to Lexington, Kentucky, and then I finished down through Nashville. Yeah. And I was able to see a bunch of people that I haven't seen in a year or maybe even more, and it's just really nice. Just you get to spend a night, you get to have coffee in the morning, and then you hit the road, and it's pretty sweet. So it's a nice little rhythm to it, and yeah. So I'm happy to be back. It was by the end of it all, my time at home and then all that driving, it was a lot of explaining to people what's going on in my life. So socially pretty drained at the end of it, and
it's only so many times you can tell that story in a short window.
Oh yeah, and then exactly. So it was a ton of that, ton of the same, and so it feels good to be back and not really have to explain myself.
It's like the kid who shows up to 5th grade with his arm in a cast, and you have to explain it to everybody for the entirety that you have your cast on.
Yeah, my dad hit me.
Oh my God.
It could have been anything. That's the real reason. You're not going to say that.
Jesus.
Anyway, moving on.
Anyway.
It's a little dark humor.
Exactly. As Ethan takes a swig of his beer, I think that's my signal to explain to the people how I'm doing.
I was about to say, Chris, how are you?
I'm good. We are recording. I think this is a first. We're recording on a Saturday afternoon. It's 2:00 for you, 3:00 for me. And this feels really strange to be sitting down doing a podcast right now, but it's our turn to be up to the dish. We got to see if we get some hits. I'm good. I had a good week. I saw the Wonder Years in concert once again for the 5th time this year, and it was fucking awesome. I saw them up in Boston with top-level Patreon supporters who we'll get to in a minute. And it was a blast, dude. They always put on a great show. Really, really good crowd. Much better than Philly. So I did that. Friday kind of got away from me a little bit. I took it easy, napped a little bit, got some good sleep, and now it's Saturday. I got some good coffee, good breakfast. I had a good lift. I grocery shopped, and now I'm podcasting. I'd rather be broadcast.
I'd rather be broadcasting, but
exactly. So yeah, we're all's well over here. We're continuing on as it's almost November here. So time is moving quickly, but it's important to check in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost November everywhere,
That's true. Not just
crazy.
here.
That's the crazy part.
Just specifically for me. They're fuck you, it's November.
It's November for Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I feel we're both at a pretty good spot.
Yeah, I would say so.
And this podcast can be fun. We're going to talk a little bit about, our support, this day in music. We're going to keep that rolling. And then we have a special little segment on School of Fish, a band that you probably haven't listened to maybe as much as you should. Yeah. And just someone that we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, in the course of events of planning this podcast, we have a lot of different directions that we can go in. There's always albums to review, there's people to talk to, and there's bands to talk about. So I think it's a cool thing that we can use this week's episode to maybe shed some light on a band that is very deserving of more recognition and more listening ears and more fans, even though they haven't been together for nearly 30 years at this point. But excited to get into some School of Fish talk. But before we do that, I do have a little housekeeping issue. I would like to apologize to all of our loyal members, our loyal listeners over on Spotify. Last week's episode, if you're up to date with things and if you like to listen to it on Monday, it was not there for you. So evidently there was an issue between our podcast hosting service and Spotify. There was some sort of coding change between the two, and our host initially said that it was Spotify's fault. Spotify said it was our host's fault. And after much back and forth, I did discover that it was in fact our host's fault. So a couple of emails later, I believe we have the problem resolved. So hopefully this one is in your inbox in Spotify bright and early on Monday, October 23rd. And hopefully we never have to deal with that again. But these things happen.
They came to snuff the rooster.
They
Chris.
tried to snuff us, which sucks because I think last week's episode was really quite good. And I had a few people reach out. They're like, "Where is the podcast?" I was like, it's out there somewhere. It's out there. No, I like that though. They want to listen to it. We're a part of people's Monday routine, Ethan. And I don't, we take that, we don't take that lightly. And apparently our host was just like, "Fuck it." They take it lightly.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's part of the flood. The podcast comes in on Monday like everything else.
Right. So hopefully we don't have to deal with that issue again, but we're well equipped here to send angry emails to the people that need to be receiving those emails to fix the problem. So, I'm always at the ready if it's time to be stern with somebody. So,
Yep.
If I have to
turn these keyboard fingers into fists,
Exactly. give them a knuckle sandwich out here.
Yeah, sweet. So
very sweet.
Yeah, if you're one of those listeners on Spotify or Apple or wherever you find your podcast, and you've been listening for a long time, maybe it's time that you decide to give a little bit of more than just time and listens, but maybe $2, $5, or if you're really feeling generous, $10 a month. That is what our Patreon tiers look like. Pretty simple. Pretty affordable, I think, as well. And
it's one of the few things that the cost has not gone up with the rate of inflation.
Right.
Like two things that have stagnated: wages and the Grunge Bible Podcast Patreon levels.
How much everybody gets paid to do the job, and Patreon. So, but it's a great opportunity right in November. No better time.
There is no better time than the present.
No better time than the present.
And when we set out to do this podcast, there's we need support, and each and every day since then, we are just so excited and so grateful for everybody's support on this project. And it's at this time that I would like to thank the individuals, but we can ring the bell this week. We have a new Patreon supporter, and their name is Darren Byrne. The jury is out if there's any sort of relation to David Byrne, but we can maybe check that out a little bit. So Darren is joining up at the $2 level. So thank you, and a very kind bell ring to you, my friend, Darren Byrne, joining the Legion of Supporters. And as we know, our $10 supporters are, the captain at the front of the ship, guiding us hopefully safely into port each and every Monday.
They might be the North Star, Chris.
Yeah, that's right. We're the captains, and they're the North Star. We are the captains of this entire operation. And if you're watching on screen, we both have these wooden captain statues.
This is us. These are our guys.
These are our guys, and we need to get safely into port. And we can thank our top tier supporters for allowing us the opportunity to even stand, at the helm of these ships that we pilot. And I'm gonna shut my mouth and just start thanking these people now. All right, $10 a month every month. These people make it possible. Patreon supporters: Pile of Punk, Lamellar Bone, D-Boat, Gochujang, Eric R. Berry, Corden Stewart, Keith White, Sherry Matthews, Mike McCready's Mustache, Granny Grunge, Epona, Alex Long, Seattle 4 fanboy from New Jersey. Faith Bittner, Eddie Vedder got me through my second divorce. Black Hole Sean, Chris LSMS, Nikki 6, Kara K, Rachel Corning, Millie, Doug Endy, What the Fuck is Up, Denny's, Fuck Soup, Jamie Lynn, Lauren Irene, Blue Owl, Jade Mercado, Carlene Salona, and Alexa Shannon. Thank you, one and all, for being our sun, moon, and stars.
Chris, I think that we should put up a 2 pictures on the story with a little poll and see which one of our
captains is better.
Yeah, which one of the captains the people rock with, because they're both very worthy.
We can make that happen. 100%.
Yeah, I want to see what the people have to say.
Right, we'll have to see. Let them decide. So what do you say? What do you say we get into it here a little bit? Let's start right at the top with this day in music history, October 23rd. So starting in chronological order. I'm just going to get right into it.
Yeah,
on this day in 1959, Weird Al came into the world.
Al Yankovic.
What do you think about Weird Al?
Well, I see you wrote in quotes "asshole," and I put next to him, "I love Weird Al." I love him, dude. I think he's a genius. He's a genius, dude. He's super smart.
I don't love him. He's
super smart. He's parody of songs is like. I mean, I think it's very flattering. I mean, he doesn't take any. If he took your song and remade it, I mean, that's a great honor. It's a lot of really good stuff.
Parodies our podcast.
I would love it. I'd love to have him on. Yeah. I've seen him once in concert, and I've seen that man in concert, Chris.
Why?
Because my dad liked him, and
of course, that makes sense.
Checks out.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was awesome, dude, because he has like really awesome kind of music videos that go with a lot of his stuff. Mm-hmm. So he would like play the music videos behind, and he'd come out and like dress up and stuff and play the parts. Like
interesting.
And he had a Nirvana one, and he had Beat It, and he changed it to Eat It. So he came out and like was dressed up in a fat suit because that was what it's all about. So I don't know, dude. He was clever, and he's really smart, and he played with the times. So why don't you like him? It's a better question.
I just don't. I don't know how to. I just don't like. I don't like the concept.
You think it's fake?
Yeah, I just don't like it. You know, I don't have any. I'm not going to get into the details of it. I just don't like him.
He's up there with the Beatles.
Exactly. He's way up there. Like the holy trinity of me not liking them is like Motley Crue, the Beatles, and Weird Al.
Wow.
Yeah. But anyways, happy birthday to him, born on this day in 1959. Kicking it forward a few years, October 23rd, 1963, Bob Dylan recorded The Times They Are A-Changin' on this day in 1963. Obviously a very, a standard of folk tradition, a standard of modern music. It's been covered by hundreds and hundreds of people in the time since, and it still rings ever true. A lot of the societal problems and issues that Dylan wrote about then, they're still just as present now, and those songs have value even as we stand here today, 60 years later.
Yeah.
Big Bob Dylan.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
In 1966, Jimi Hendrix records what would be his first single, Hey Joe. And I thought it was interesting that, I guess, thinking about it, I thought Jimmy maybe would be a little bit older and had a song before Bob Dylan. So I'm kind of surprised to see that, but I guess Dylan's, I guess he is older.
Yeah, Jimmy's star burned brightly and not for very long.
Right.
He was an absolute king. Hey Joe, once again, a song that's been covered, by so many people. And that's the biggest form of flattery, I think, if you cover somebody's song, you devote time of yourself, except when it's Weird Al.
Not parodies, though.
Not parodies. I'm out on parodies. All right, we're gonna shift forward a few decades here, up to October 23rd, 1989, and on this day in 1989, Nirvana played their first ever show in the United Kingdom. So that's obviously very notable here on the Grunge Bible podcast. And then up 2 more years, on this day in 1991, Rage Against the Machine played their first ever show at Cal State Northridge, obviously over in California. And an interesting note, they opened with Killing in the Name Of, which still at the time of that show, it was just an instrumental. There had not been lyrics written for it. So, talk about ground floor. That show on October 23rd, 91 was the first floor of the Rage Against the Machine experience.
That's pretty crazy. Was the Nirvana show, so that was only their first show in UK, not their first show ever?
Yeah, only their first show in the United Kingdom, yes. They had played, for a few years domestically.
Sweet.
Excellent.
Moving on, in 1995. Smashing Pumpkins, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, initially released in the UK. US release would come one day later, October 24th. So that was on our radar to do an episode on that. And I just want to have everybody know that there's a deluxe edition on Spotify of the album that had like 92 tracks on it, and it was almost 6 hours long. And Chris and I decided that was not in the cards for us to do today.
that was not going to happen. Well, even the standard album has like 24 songs or something. That was also not going to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe someday. Yeah,
I mean, it's a super worthy album. I mean, it has a ton of some of their most popular stuff, and maybe one day we will get to it. Maybe we'll do another Smashing Pumpkins. We can do another one soon, maybe, Chris.
Yeah, I think we can. We can squeeze one in here and there. Let's kick it up to 2001, October 23rd. And this is probably one of the more consequential dates on the entire music calendar. On this day in 2001, Apple publicly announced the iPod. So they announced that it was happening. And obviously the streamability and the downloadability of music into a device in your pocket, that day, the iPod especially has really forever changed the way that people consume music. It's had a lot of negative ramifications, I think, in the way that, artists are able to profit off of their work. So for better or for worse. And that's the interesting thing, about any sort of innovation, when people are on the cutting edge and create new inventions and innovations, there's no rule book on how to use it. You can use it for good or for bad. And the iPod obviously was such a tremendous innovation and something really important to the accessibility of music. But there's obviously different consequences, both positive and negative. But I mean, my music experience was molded by the portability of music for sure. So
was that your first device, Chris?
Music
Did you have an
device?
iPod
Nano?
Nano?
I had an iPod Nano. I got it for Christmas of 2005, and I remember.
Oh yeah, the hot Christmas gift.
Yeah. And I remember some of the technologically minded members of my family. Like we had Christmas Day dinner with just the small family, but then at night, the entire extended family would come over and we'd have 60, 70 to 100 people filter in throughout the house throughout the evening. And I remember some of the technologically minded members of my family were just marveling at the fact that little thing had 2 gigabytes. It had 2 gigabytes of storage, which is so massive. And we were marveling at it. And it's crazy now because my iPhone right now has 500 gigabytes and it's not that much bigger than the iPod Nano. So, or the
it's
iPod
not
Nano.
enough.
So, and it's never enough, Ethan.
It's never enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the Nano. I remember when they first got the touch screen, and that was a big deal.
Yeah, I didn't have that one. I had to use the wheel still on mine.
Do you remember the iPod Classic, where you could watch music videos?
Yes, one of my friends had my friend Jeff, who turned me on to a lot of music. I was so jealous of because we used to watch Green Day music videos on his iPod.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, exactly. It was probably Christmas. Yeah, 05 or maybe a couple years later.
He got the big iPod, and I got the Nano.
Drew, well, I was gonna say Drew got the iPod Classic.
Did you have the Shuffle?
I had this. No, I didn't even have an iPod. I had another device. Not
Absolutely.
Not
like
a Zune.
Skull Candy or something.
It was it was an MP3 Sonata or something.
The Hyundai Sonata.
It was a Hyundai MP3 Sonata or something like that.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
But my little thing, it was nice because it wasn't a touchscreen wheel. It was actually a piece. So it actually had some physical touch to it.
Yep.
And it would light up blue.
Okay.
And it was I did the job. I liked it. Same difference.
That's exciting. I like that a lot. And I'm glad, that we had iPod Nanos because a few years later, one that was downloaded many times, on this day in 2006, Amy Winehouse released her very famous single, Rehab, which I remember dominated the radio at the time, and I think is still one of the more enduring singles that she ever put out. Also on this day in 2006, a very important day for anyone that's around our age, My Chemical Romance released their album, The Black Parade, on October 23rd, 2006. And man,
so good.
This one's really important. I had not listened to it in ages, Ethan, because I hate the title track. I just I can't stand it. My mother took me into the city or whatever to see a marching band, whatever the fuck That one.
Welcome to the Black Parade.
Welcome to the Black Parade. Yeah, it's just not for me. But I'm telling you,
I love that song.
Do you? I just couldn't get into it, and I still can't get into it. But
as a young boy listening, I was maybe easily got into it. That was.
I was a big Teenagers guy, and I was a big Disenchanted guy. A couple of the final tracks on the album.
Teenagers was awesome, and then I like Blood and Cancer a lot too. I remember listening to those. A bunch.
And I'll tell you, like, if you're in your late 20s right now, like, this is one that you're going to remember, you know, whether you enjoyed the album or not. You know, you heard it, you had friends who were into it. You know,
MCR was massive, man.
Yeah, they were massive. They're a huge deal. So
when they broke up, I was really sad. I mean, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
I think they came back together for a little bit, but
they always get back together.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I was listening to, oh my gosh, we've been listening to the emos of the world. And
fuck yeah.
So I just listened to some Under Oath, you know, some heavy metal from back in the day, and it went on a playlist. But Make Damn Sure came on, and that song
Taking Back Sunday.
Yeah, Taking Back Sunday. Yeah. And man, that song is just like, it's just still to this day so good. It's so much fun to yell and scream. The last part of that song,
when they switch to halftime drumming and they go to the chorus again, is so amazing.
Anybody has to sing that when it comes on. Everybody has to sing that.
I'm going to listen to that song multiple times as soon as we finish recording.
Dude, I was gonna send it to you and be like, dude, this song is just like, it's so vintage, and it is really. But
it still sounds so fresh, and that's how you know they were doing something right. That might be a song of the week candidate.
MCR, Taking Back Sunday, dude, Reliant K. I don't know, a couple of those bands.
Oh, yeah.
Some good stuff.
Yeah, we're going to have like a spin-off podcast where we just talk about these bands.
Yeah, it would work.
Yeah, it totally would.
Yeah, that's a really good album. And then lastly, fast forward to today, the 135th episode of the Grunge Bubble podcast is out worldwide. And that's a pretty special day in music that'll be remembered forever.
Yeah, that one's going into the history books. The pundits are taking note of that right now. So that's our music trip down memory lane for this day, October 23rd. And now we get into the main event. And Ethan, as we were talking about earlier, it's always fun, you know, to use this space to shed some light on different stuff, and maybe, you know, if we can draw people's attention to an area where they wouldn't normally put their attention to, you know, and they spend some time in that area and come out with a newfound appreciation for something, or they become a new fan of something. You know, that's the purest form of music fandom, I think, you know, because we can share something with somebody in a sincere way and they like it, and they in turn go and do that with other people. I think that's a really special thing, and that's how, you know, that's how music perpetuates itself, and that's how great art lives on. And today we get to do that with a band that we've been fond of for the last few years since we discovered them initially, and that is School of Fish. They were a short-lived band that were founded in 1989, and they had disbanded by 1994. So but a brief moment in time. And obviously, as far as like guitar-driven alternative rock, you know, probably the most resource-rich era of alternative guitar-driven rock, you know, and they were players in that scene, and they were, I mean, how saturated that market was with great music. You know, everybody's fighting for air, everybody's fighting for their space and the attention of people. And this is a band that, you know, they never, they didn't break through to certain heights that, you know, commercial heights that a lot of other bands at the time that we all know and love did. But, you know, the music is great just the same. So it's exciting that we're going to be able to discuss the mighty School of Fish.
Absolutely. Just wondering, Chris, do you remember how you initially found this band? Because you put them on to me. Yeah. So was it a rabbit hole? Or how did we get there?
I do not remember. I think it was sometime in like the fall of 2019. And I don't know if somebody sent me 3 Strange Days or if I found it on my own. But I know that was the song, as I think most people with School of Fish, that's the song. You know, you don't happen upon to Euphoria, you know, on your own, unless you're really going through some shit, which I would find out in 2020. Euphoria became a big one for me. But I think that's how it happened. And I started posting them on Grunge Bible. And strangely enough, and we did an episode on this band, the Tragically Hip, maybe about a year ago. But the response that we get when we post School of Fish, the replies and the comments are so unbelievably sincere, and like the memories that people will comment are so vivid, and that's just a testament, I think, to this band. That they only released 2 albums. They only existed for the better part of 5 years, and still almost 30 years later, people are immediately taken back to those days, and the music's got to have some staying power. So as we get into it, so the 2 main players of School of Fish were 2 individuals named Joshua Clayton-Felt and Michael Ward, and initially for their first record and subsequent tour of that record, they had Dominic Nardini and Michael Petrak with them, but after that album they switched, and then the live rhythm section was Chad Fisher and I believe Chris McDonald over on bass. But I'll tell you though, the synergy that Joshua Clayton-Felt, who did vocals and some guitar, and Michael Ward, who was a powerhouse of a songwriter and lead guitarist, they were able to come together and make some really, really awesome stuff, I think, particularly on that first album that they put out. And I'm always partial to Josh Clayton-Felt. He was born in Boston, spent some time at Brown University, which is in my town. So it's a really, really great project.
Yeah, that's awesome, because they did most of their they were out in LA for most of their time as a band. So pretty cool that he was an East Coast guy, and especially right from close. That might be how you found him, to be honest.
It might have been. Yeah, it could have been like, it could have been something, because it'll happen. Like I'll get DMs like, oh, like you're from Boston. Like, do you know of this Boston band or something? And that happens frequently with us with Philly too.
Good music scene in Providence. Back in the day. Not a bad. Yeah, I mean, everybody's that's what they say.
That's what they do say, and that's what I'll say too. So, so they got together in 1989. Josh Clayton-Felt and Michael Ward, and Michael Ward would go on actually post breakup of School of Fish. He'd play in the Wallflowers, which was Jacob Dylan's band, and they had some obviously hits of the '90s going on there. And then he became a prominent member of Ben Harper's band, The Innocent Criminals, and Ben Harper's, a fantastic artist. He's done stuff with Eddie Vedder in the past as well. So Michael Ward has just gone on to be, a musician's musician in a lot of ways, and a fantastic guitarist. But, when they got together, they filled out that lineup, and they were able to sign to Capitol Records, and they put out both of their albums. But I definitely think that first album that I think we're going to spend most of this episode probably discussing, their self-titled album, which came out in 1991, is just a fantastic song, fantastic album.
Yeah, and I tried to look up some of their concerts and their tours. They played with the likes of Helmet and They Might Be Giants, Paul Westerberg, and
it was always Paul Westerberg.
Oh yeah, Paul, dude, exactly. Dyslexic Hark is back.
He never left.
And something came up that said they only played 18 shows in the span of 92 to like 94. And which, I mean, if they pumped out 2 albums, like, their time would be tight, but like that seems hard to believe. So
I don't believe that.
Yeah. But like, it's 5 years as a band is not a lot of time. Like when you said that, like start to finish, because that first like year or two, they probably played a little bit, but
well, you don't have any music out, so like it's the way you play and where you play and what bills you get on is obviously vastly different than once you put that record out.
when you look at it as a whole, like they didn't play that much, and they only have 2 albums, and it was a short-lived project. I mean, 5 years. In the moment, maybe seemed that, doing something for 5 years, but like, that's 30 years ago. That's a short time to be together. So, it's kind of sad that we didn't have much more of them.
Yep. But you figure between their 2 albums.
But that's how projects go.
Yeah. Between their 2 albums, there's 24 songs.
Yeah.
That's it, but a moment in time.
Yeah, one Smashing Pumpkins album is just 24
Or the
songs.
entire career of School of Fish. Choose your fighter.
Exactly.
I'm picking School of Fish.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm picking.
I mean, so the start of the album, the self-titled School of Fish album, this intro, I don't know what you think of it, Chris, but I love it. Like, I love it so much. I love that it goes right into, obviously, 3 Strange Days, and it fits perfectly. It has this has that like Jane's Addiction like drumming to it, where it's kind of like pop drums. Got some cool like kind of meandering like riffs and drum parts. And then obviously we have the song Three Strange Days, which is just a perfect vintage 90s song. Yeah. Like that's what these guys are. They're
men of their time.
They're men of their time. They're they're like, I would hear that. This is like, you hear the song on the radio, like, turn it up. Larry, tell your buddy to stop talking.
There's just something that grabs you with it. And I have to say, going back to that intro, I love it when bands do this, when like one track leads directly into the next, because like if you listen to Three Strange Days just on its own, like it just cuts in, and it's right off of the heels of intro. But I love the intro to it as well. The beginning of it kind of gives me like Saturday morning professional tennis on television vibes in a weird way, if that's even like a quantifiable vibe, but for me it is. And it kind of like it shifts as like it goes from the intro to like the intro to Three Strange Days, and Three Strange Days is obviously their hit, and fantastic guitar work by Michael Ward. His tone on all of the lead work, all of the heavy riffing that he was doing, is really impressive. And I think for me, that's what draws me into a lot of School of Fish's stuff, particularly this song. It's strange, in an era where there was, it's like, how many alternative rock bands were there? It's like, well, how much time do you have? And the fact that they're able to kind of carve out their own space and create something unique. And this song is just incredible. The bridge is really great. The chorus is fantastic. The way they overlay that lead lick into the chorus and in different parts. And the lyrics are just great. Johnny Clueless was there with a simulated wood grain.
Yeah.
And I pulled up a chair and started drinking by myself.
Dude, it is really, really great. Like I said, just you watch the live version of them playing, and like it's just such a flowing, it flows really well. Like I mean, it's a master, obviously, of the riff, and it's one of those riffs that, I think the way it's played makes it really, really appealing. May not be the hardest thing to play. I don't know. Yeah. But like, I just feel like
the drumming on it, the live drumming Chad Fisher did on this, who was the live drummer from 91 to 94 is really, really great and super complimentary of all of those elements. And
shout out to the drummer.
Shout out to the drummer. Always shout out your local drummer.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. I think it's so funny. We were doing a little research and watching a few live stuff, and we like to check out the YouTube comments of the world.
It's the most sincere place.
Yeah, so I saw a YouTube comment, and we have a shared note thing that we put all of our stuff there, and so I threw the comment over there, and then Chris hopped on and it sent me a screenshot of this comment, and I was like, did you check the doc? And he had picked out the same exact one that I had, and we didn't even know, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Which leads me to the comment. It says in quotes, this song was playing on the radio Saturday morning, June 1st, 1991. As I was leaving my high school's project graduation lock-in, I just sat in my car and let the song play as about 300 other seniors/graduates tore out of the school's parking lot for the last time. And, it's so good.
If that doesn't encapsulate what this music is, nothing does.
I love... Dude, Three Strange Days. I mean, that was perfect. Like the end of your senior year when you're trying to graduate, and it was like you're in school but you're not doing anything. People are cutting out early. You got graduation practice. You don't know what to do. And then the kids. I love that he put the date June 1st, 1991, Saturday afternoon.
You can still smell the air.
And literally, those kids are like leaving all at the same time for the last time. It is just such a beautiful.
And I think it's really cool that this commenter had the presence of mind to pause and take that moment in instead of being one of the 300 tearing out immediately. I think that's really cool, and even better that this song was on the radio. I got heavy into School of Fish in 2020, and I sought out a CD copy of this album back when I could only play CDs in my car. I didn't have an aux plug-in or anything, and I played it all the time. And the one lyric in Three Strange Days, it's, well, I got to make it through no matter what it takes. I've got to make it through these strange days, which we've all been there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love, Three Strange Days is such it comes up in your life like periodically where you just have a couple days like strung together, just like make no sense. You're totally thrown off. And there's a lot of value in there. I don't know. I was in like that sneaky bender that, that comes out of nothing. that you got to deal with, or a lot of travel days where you're just kind of like in limbo for a couple days. I mean, I don't know. It's a fun, for me, it's a fun thing to think about.
Yeah, I agree.
The in-between of the...
Yeah, it's so applicable, I think. And the fact that a song can capture like an emotion and a feeling like that is really, really impressive. And they certainly did that. I think it's no surprise that this is the one that became the hit for them, and that this is the one that everybody remembers. But there's also a lot on this album too, that I think is just... It's no wonder why they were signed, and it's kind of a bit of a head scratcher, maybe why they didn't gain more popularity, because they had the hit 3 Strange Days. The rest of the album's really strong. I just think of how great of alternative rock writing a lot of this album is. I mean, some of my favorites are Deep End, King of the Dollar, Wrong, Rose-Colored Glasses, and then they had their great ballad on there to close it out called Euphoria. But you hear a song like Wrong and Rose-Colored Glasses. I mean, they've got the really catchy hooks. They've got the great instrumentation. The vocals are right on point by Josh Clayton-Felt. And this is a really, really strong debut album. Really strong.
I think so too. Yeah, I absolutely think so. I mean, it's very complete. Each song, like you said, King of the Dollar, just really driving. Like, got the guitar going, and he has this the '90s rock voice that's slightly different than what you find in a studio. It's a little bit off.
Yeah,
and it really pulls people in. Pulls me in, obviously. But it was popular. It's popular that time. So yeah, it's just a good band.
A fun part about King of the Dollar, which is the 5th track, they, as a part of the lyrics, they use the phrase "can't get no satisfaction," and right after it, Michael Ward throws in the "can't get no satisfaction" from the Stones. Yeah. The lick in there, the little riff action, and they ended up ultimately they credited Mick and Keith Richards on the songwriting credits for that one. So that's the way it happens sometimes. But yeah, this is a that's a really, really great track too. And yeah, man, Rose-Colored Glasses, like some of these songs, it's so strange. I mean, this album came out in 1991 and I discovered it really in earnest in 2020. And like these songs immediately take me back to like that era of my life, much like hearing 3 Strange Days takes people back to graduating high school in 91. We've all got those moments in time that this music served as a soundtrack. And it's certainly soundtrack worthy.
Yeah, it really is. Moving on to anything else you want to say about that album? I mean, it is.
No, not really.
It's a really solid listen. It's hard. It's just like a really solid album that if you're looking for something different, and you want to maybe not every song is going to hit the way you want it to, but that's album. That's how albums go.
Yeah. But I would say like the only closing thought I have on their self-titled album, their debut album, is that it happens to you and me very often that people will reach out and be like, hey, like, do you have recommendations, or like, what should I listen to? And the biggest endorsement I can give of this album is that this is an album that I frequently recommend to people when they're looking for something to listen to front to back, that like, a lot of times people, they want to be recommended something they haven't heard before. Like chances are like, they haven't, invested into School of Fish. So this is one that I show a lot of people, and I'm like, make sure you listen to it front to back. And you don't cherry pick like the popular songs. Don't like go to Spotify and listen to like the 2 or 3 most popular from the album. Listen to it front to back. It's not long, and it's really, really cohesive. So the fact that this is the one that like in my private life, a lot of times I'm sharing with people that I care about, and I want them to enjoy my recommendations. This is one that I turn to. So, let that be the endorsement that you all need.
There you go. You heard it. That is,
check out some School of Fish.
Chris Salona's stamp of approval. Yeah, the
stamp of approval. We're putting it on there.
He does it in his personal life, not just on the mic.
In my personal life, yeah. Business and pleasure. School of Fish is there. School of Fish album stays on during sex, Ethan.
Yes, exactly. School of Fish by School of Fish does in fact stay on.
So as we mentioned, that was not the only album they did. They did another album in 1993 called Human Cannonball, which was also released on Capitol. It was received well by the various critics that sought out to review this album, but it didn't sell. It didn't have any sort of commercial success, I think, that the label certainly was hoping for, and also I'm sure the band members were hoping for. And after this album came out in 1994 was the end of the band. But I think my favorite thing about Human Cannonball, it's definitely more it feels like a second album. You know, it's more polished in different ways. I think the production is more polished, but my favorite thing about this one is that on drums during the recording, the session drummer for this was a young, very young, like 21 years old, Josh Freese.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a great little thing that I didn't know.
Trivia piece.
Yeah, so Josh Freese, he recently became Foo Fighters' touring drummer and part of the band. And I think a lot of people are like, who is he? Like, what did he do? And this is exactly what he did. He showed up on albums like the second album for School of Fish. And yeah, at 20, you put 21 years old. That's pretty awesome. I mean, it's probably one of his first works as, you know, an artist and a drummer. And obviously he's a great session drummer and toured with a lot of people like, you know, Weezer, Sublime, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of
Danny
his,
Elfman.
I'm looking at Josh Freese's his credits on albums as a featured artist, and like Suicidal Tendencies, School of Fish, Paul Westerberg, Juliana Hatfield, Westerberg again, Danny Elfman again. I mean, New Radicals. You know, he's been absolutely all over the place, but as it speaks chronologically, some of his first work was in 1991, and God, he would have been 18 or 19 then. And then School of Fish was one of his earlier, this Human Cannonball record was one of his earlier periods of time. So really, really cool. And also, you know, I've not spent nearly as much time with this album as I have with their self-titled, because I personally prefer the self-titled. I think it's a little better, but there's some great songs on there. I love the song Complicator, and also Fountain. It's got like I'm a sucker for like a nice little ascending guitar riff at the beginning, and Fountain's got that. And it kind of like, I didn't know of it when I was in college, but like this album, that song, Fountain, for some reason it just reminds me of college and like being like 18 or 19 or 20 and whatnot. And you know, all throughout both of these albums, Josh Clayton-Felt's voice really, really thrives, and it kind of like brings all of it, really ties the room together, as some would say.
Yeah, absolutely. The guitar work and his voice is definitely what sets this band apart. I really like Kerosene off of that album.
Okay, yeah.
I've only given it a few times through, but that has some good melodies in it. And it's a little bit longer if I remember. It's probably like 6 minutes or something. Yeah. And it's another solid album. You know, like I said, we go to the original one first. It's tough. When's the last time, you know, if you're going to a band, you listen to 2 albums straight through?
Not very often. Yeah.
Yeah. The attention span doesn't always last that long.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'll get through an album. That probably hasn't happened for me, honestly, like since I first started getting into grunge. Like I remember I would just have like Pearl Jam days and I would just listen because everything was new at the time. But usually, you know, I gotta switch artists. So, you know, it's always the self-titled, and so
I gotta throw some
every time
Human
you come back
Cannonball in there.
Yeah. Exactly. So maybe a playlist is in order for some people, and you can throw a few songs on. But
School of Fish is
really solid.
Hits. Yeah, absolutely, and really, really great musicians. And I think I get the sense that a lot of these artists in the band, you know, were just like students of music, and certainly Michael Ward was, as we spoke about, but also Joshua Clayton-Felt. You know, he came from, you know, he was heavily invested in music from a really young age, and he went on to a solo career. Actually, he released an album in 1996 called Inarticulate Nature Boy, which is definitely a little bit more of a different textured listen, I would say,
That's a good way to put it,
than any of his work with School of Fish. But he was working on a few other projects. But I think, you know, the sad part of the School of Fish story, Josh Clayton-Felt passed away from testicular cancer at only 32 years old. He was diagnosed in December of 1999 with a very, very aggressive, difficult form of testicular cancer, and he was gone in January of 2000, you know, just about a month later. But it's cool, you know, his estate, they were able to put together a few posthumous releases from a lot of the projects that he was working on as a solo artist in subsequent years. And surviving members of School of Fish here and there have come together to, you know, play some of their songs. And I think there's a version of 3 Strange Days from, you know, the pandemic lockdown era in 2020. And they did a live stream, I think, together, and they played it, which is really cool. You know, the fact that, you know, those guys were able to communicate again and get together and play some of those songs, you know, together after all those years. And I'm sure they don't do it without, you know, without thinking of their friend, Josh Clayton-Felt.
Yeah, really sad part of the story. 32 is just so young, to die of a medical, something like that. I mean, that's really not ideal in a lot of ways. So,
but it's a good band.
Yeah.
The good musicians is a part of it. So that is it's our endorsement. You got to listen to some School of Fish.
Yeah. So if you're the person that likes to listen to, like what I wrote down at Marcy's Playground, lit, Everclear type of, sound and stuff.
Even
School of Fish.
like live maybe too. You could throw live in there a little bit. I think that could be a connection there as well.
Mm-hmm. A little porno for pyros and stuff. You're gonna love him. You're really gonna enjoy him. So give it a shot and let us know what you think.
Absolutely, that's what we're here for.
School of Fish. So if you don't have anything else to say, we can wrap up the School of Fish section of the episode.
Yes, we can.
Which would take us to our last part, where we give you recommendations of songs that you should be listening to. Not that we don't always give you songs to listen to, and we just give you a whole band. But sometimes we like to just we have a playlist running, and we just like to put songs that are honestly just kind of eclectic, and we want to put it together on a list. I mean, there's really no rhyme or reason.
It's
Usually
like at the end of a political debate where they're like, we're now going to give all of the candidates on stage 60 seconds to talk about why they think they should be the nominee or why they should be elected. And like, this is our 60 seconds at the end of the debate where it's like, we have the floor and this is why you should listen to the song.
Yeah, exactly. So
I have to ask,
time, Chris, you have 60 seconds.
Well, so are you picking a School of Fish song?
No.
Okay, I'm not either.
I'm not gonna this time because we just told them we go listen to them. I mean, usually we do that if we have, but I got another song that I want to shout out that has been important in the last month.
Great. So I am going to. I'll lead off. Yeah, I'll get into it. I just decided on mine. So my song of the week is going to be a cover of a Taylor Swift song by the frontman of the Wonder Years, Dan Campbell. And he did a cover, I think in 2019 or 2020, of Taylor Swift's song All Too Well. And I love the Taylor Swift version. I love the 10-minute version. I love like the 15-minute mini film that they released for it. And I fucking love Dan Campbell's version above all. I have been completely and utterly hopelessly obsessed with anything that Dan Campbell has done for the last 3 months of my life. I've spent some time with him, watching him live. I've just consumed, like I'm telling you, this year is finally going to be the year that the trio of Mark Lanegan, Bruce Springsteen, and Pearl Jam are unseated as my top on my Spotify Wrapped. And the Wonder Years, I think, are full steam ahead to the top spot. And Dan Campbell might find his way in there as well as a solo artist. But yeah, dude, it's fucking great. I love his voice. And I love how he just makes it his own. So that's going to be my song of the week. I think I've had like 3 or 4 Wonder Years songs in the last couple of months, so I steered clear of that, but I'm still getting my dose of Dan in here somehow.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Not surprising. And yeah, this has been a hard stretch for you. You've been really hammering away.
Yeah, dude.
Feels good though. Sometimes
it feels good. It feels good to invest
entrenched.
in something in this way. Like you invest your time, in a band, and you really not that it's like. Not that
you're
it's
planting your flag.
Yeah, exactly. Like it takes effort to do that, and it's fun.
You're putting in the work. You're putting in the work.
Fucking putting in the work. Like got up this morning, listen to the Wonder Years, listen to Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go to sleep. I'm gonna do the same thing.
I will not be called a poser. I am here to stay.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I've seen them 5 times this year. I've seen them like 8 times overall. And right. my friend Cullen, Eddie Vedder, got me through my second divorce. I went to the show and he's seen them like 12 or 13 times. And he gave me the greatest endorsement. He's like, you're no longer a newbie with this band. Like you're in now, like you're seasoned. So you can say all of the things that oh, this show is so much better. Like they always play better in this state. Cause I have the perspective now.
Yes, dude. You can be like, yeah, That's awesome.
Yeah, I fucking
You
love
can say with confidence, this is not one of their better shows. Like, this is not
exactly.
normal.
And I'll tell you, the Boston show that I just saw a couple of nights ago, once again, if you become a top level Patreon supporter, you get to see a live show with me.
Probably the Wonder Years.
Probably the Wonder Years, yeah. Rachel Corning and Eddie Vedder got me through my second divorce. We bellied up to the House of Blues in Boston and watched the Wonder Years, which was amazing. It was my second favorite Wonder Years show out of the 8 that I've seen, for sure.
Yeah, right behind Philly.
Yeah, exactly, right behind Philly.
So my song is very topical.
Is it Paul Westerberg?
It is. No, it's not. It's School of Fish. No, it's not that either. So my song, and it was, my buddy Nick just got married, and it was a song that him and the guys like to sing for a while, and I kind of heard it from them first, but then I realized that they got it because they obviously live in Philly,
right?
And the Phillies play this after each win. And it's Dancing on My Own.
Oh, hell yeah.
The remix with Tiesto and Callum Scott. And it is absolutely electric.
Yeah.
And there's some great montages of all the Philly stuff out there. But he played it at their wedding. Like obviously, like it was in the wee bits of the night. We played it like 7 times. We just kept playing it because it was just so good.
Absolutely.
And this song is just like that feel good energy. Like, dude, just dancing on my own. And like, you know how it is when you're dancing on your own. And man, it is a good song. Gets you a little emotional just because. And I'm hoping to, like they say, play the damn song. Like I need to hear it tonight. They're not going to play it. They won't play it at the Diamondback Stadium, but I want to hear it.
Oh yeah. It's funny that the Phillies, the 2023 Phils, are using that song. So the Red Sox made it to the American League Championship Series in 2021, and they used this song as well. And maybe Schwarber brought it over because he was on the he was on the Sox in 2021. Maybe the Schwarber brought it over.
That would make the song that much better.
I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, what can't that man do besides hit over 250? Besides hit over 200. But it's okay. He hits tanks. He hit one last night. Ultimately the Phils came up short. But for those proud few watching on YouTube, I've got the Phils jersey on right now. So,
Chris, that last at bat that he had in the top of the ninth, he was like centimeters from getting underneath that ball, and it would have been absolutely gone. Yeah. I mean, it got to the outfield in a hurry. It was just a little too low, or he would have did it again. So that sucked to see because we couldn't get a hit after that.
So as it stands right now, the Phillies Diamondbacks NLCS, they're tied 2 games apiece in a best of 7. So it essentially becomes a best of 3. We're recording this on Saturday, October 21st. They play in about 4 hours. Team Grunge Bible is going to be watching that. And the nice thing, the series cannot end before this episode comes out, but certainly by the next time we talk to you, the Phillies will hopefully be in the World Series.
Yeah, this is a last away game, and then we go back to the bank. So
they don't lose at the bank.
We're undefeated in the postseason at the bank, and we hit like 400 or something. Where away we're like right under 200 or something like that. We hit like crazy. Yeah, we're probably not 400, but it's pretty high.
It's up there. So
yeah,
go Phils.
So with that, I believe this episode has come to a conclusion. I want to thank you all for listening and giving us your time and support. Please consider becoming a Patreon supporter, helping us out that way. If not, just share, like, and be active on the page. That does the job as well. So we're not picky.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, we are here because of you.
Amen to that. So,
amen. Thank
you, everybody. Into the Flood again. Hope you have a great week, and we will see you same place, same time next week.
Stay heavy.
Rock and roll.